Yes, said Albert, but this has nothing to do with the existence of the Count of Monte Cristo. Pardieu, everyone exists. Doubtless, but not in the same way. Everyone has not black slaves, a princely retinue, an arsenal of weapons that would do credit to an Arabian fortress, horses that cost 6,000 francs apiece, and Greek mistresses. Have you seen the Greek mistress? I have both seen and heard her. I saw her at the theater, and heard her one morning when I breakfasted with the Count. He eats, then? Yes, but so little it can hardly be called eating. He must be a vampire. Laugh if you will. The Countess G., who knew Lord Ruthven, declared that the Count was a vampire. Ah, capital, said Beauchamp. For a man not connected with newspapers, here is the pendant of the famous sea serpent of the Constitutionnel. Wild eyes, the iris of which contracts or dilates at pleasure, said Debray. Facial angle strongly developed, magnificent forehead, livid complexion, black beard, sharp and white teeth, politeness unexceptionable. Just so, Lucien, returned Morcerf. You have described him feature for feature. Yes, keen and cutting politeness. This man has often made me shudder. And one day, when we were viewing an execution, I thought I should faint, more from hearing the cold and calm manner in which he spoke of every description of torture, than from the sight of the executioner and the culprit. Did he not conduct you to the ruins of the Colosseum and suck your blood? Asked Beauchamp. Or, having delivered you, make you a sign of flaming parchment, surrendering your soul to him as Esau did his birthright. Rail on at your ease, gentlemen, said Morcerf, somewhat piqued. When I look at you Parisians, idlers on the Boulevard de Gaulle, or the Bois de Boulogne, and think of this man, it seems we are not of the same race. I am highly flattered, returned Beauchamp. I don't know why I've given the most American accent to the character with the most French name, Beauchamp. One thing that struck me yesterday that I didn't comment on, because I thought it would continue here today, is that Albert is kind of recounting to these men, especially yesterday, things he himself did not experience, but only heard from Franz when Franz confessed the entire history he has had with Dante. And I don't know if it's a kind of co-opting sort of deal, or if he is just kind of relaying the details of this man accurately, or as he heard them to the best of his knowledge. But I flag that. It's just like something that can't go uncommented upon. Both in terms of me commenting upon Albert commenting upon it, but also Albert not being able to not comment on it because he knows he heard it. It's like a gossipy thing. You would never believe what I heard. Well, this is what I heard about this guy. Even though he can't verify it because he heard it, he has to include it in his story because he's somewhat sensationalizing Dante, right? He's blowing up the myth of Dante, inflating the myth of Dante to these men before Dante arrives. What's interesting, actually, I just realized this because yesterday was when Albert was talking about Dante assuming the name Sinbad the Sailor, but he only got that information from Franz. He was not introduced as Sinbad the Sailor to Dante at all. Or was it yesterday or the day before? Doesn't matter. It just this whole conversation here. Yeah, it was yesterday. Sorry, I'm going back and looking. Since he calls himself Sinbad the Sailor, he has a cave filled with gold. ... Two questions come up. One, Maximilian Morel here should know that name, right? And yet, the only comment he makes upon it is that I have heard something like this from an old sailor named Penelon. That's it. You'd think that his sister, having direct contact with Dante, a.k.a. Sinbad the Sailor, with that note, that his father, naturally wondering about his benefactor, would ask his daughter about the note. Sinbad the Sailor would have had to come into their purview at some point, so it seems like Maximilian would know a bit more about Sinbad the Sailor than he's letting on here. But the other thing is, Albert doesn't know any other name for Dante except the Count of Monte Cristo, right? Am I forgetting something? I mean, he wasn't introduced by any other name. Sinbad is the only other one that has come across his desk, so to speak. He doesn't know him as Dante. Edmond Dante is essentially dead. Unlike his, priestly disguise when he went to Caderousse, the banker disguise when he went to Morel. Like, Dante is assuming the disguise of the Count of Monte Cristo, but no other name. I guess he just calls him Count, huh? You'd think he'd ask that at some point. Maybe that'll come up. Maybe that'll come up when they meet again. You would assume, if he has to introduce him to other people, that certainly you'd want to know what you're introducing him by. The last thing I want to mention is I wonder if this was, this chapter, this and chapter 39, were a break in the story for people of the time as it's being serialized. Or maybe it's a way to just catch people up on like what they've been missing out on. It feels like a lot of not necessarily redundant information. I mean, I guess it is, but it's being presented through a different character's point of view. But it is summarizing a lot all at once. The Arabian Nights, the discovery of Dante through Franz, going to his island blindfolded, the Cave of Diamonds, seeing him in Italy being kidnapped. We're getting the execution stuff now. Like, he's going through the greatest hits of the last couple of chapters. And I wonder if it is a way for Dumas to catch readers up. Here's the recap in case you haven't been paying attention for a couple weeks. The thing that made me think that is when he's going so far as even to indulge in this kind of banter about him being a vampire, which happened between Countess G and Franz, not necessarily Albert. But I guess that's neither here nor there. And speaking of here and there, join me here tomorrow, which will be there then, but it'll be here now when then becomes now, for a little bit more of chapter 40. Until then, okay, goodbye. The Countdown of Monte Cristo is part of the Gruntwork Podcast Network. This show is produced, edited, and hosted by Landon Solano. The original text of The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. Theme song by Magic Solo. If you want to support the show and others like it, visit patreon.com/gruntworkpod. Thank you for listening. See you tomorrow.